And we are live with session number 8 of Nansen Office Hours. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining. How you doing this week, Alex?
Good, as usual. How are you doing?
I am good. How was your session at CoinGecko this morning?
Oh, yeah, that was fun. We had a chat with Larry from the block and Arthur, one of the truly great DeFi investors. So we were really talking about, the crypto market in 2020 and how it's shaping up for this year. Um, Nothing too controversial, I think. We ended up agreeing on a lot of points. Um, but yeah, no, it was great. A lot of fun, and the CoinGecko guys are very nice and did an excellent job hosting it.
Good stuff. Any highlights from that?
Hmm. Highlights, perhaps. I mean, I think it's always interesting to hear Arthur's thoughts because he has such a good track record as an investor. So it's just quite nice to be able to, hear him take sort of 5 minutes and break down like how he sees the DeFi market and which projects he's looking at, which ones he thinks will sort of get natural monopolies and which ones might be able to have different segments that they serve. So I thought that was pretty good. It's probably midway into the video. Of course, everything I said was really good too, and very intelligent,
Of course, yeah.
and alpha leaking.
Yeah.
So that's another thing people should watch out for.
All right. Well, speaking of new projects and things that are worth kind of taking a look at, or not, one thing that's kind of been in the zeitgeist in the past 24 hours has been Saddle Finance, which launched yesterday officially, which is a fork of Curve Finance. So there were some discussions about on Twitter, some pretty heated discussions over if they're innovating or if it's just a simple fork. But regardless of that discussion, maybe we can just kind of poke through some of our dashboards and see where one might be looking, where they might happen to stumble upon Saddle Finance just by serendipity. So I think
Sounds good.
maybe you can screen share and we can kick off with Token God mode for WBTC.
Yeah, let's do it. Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, so you know, as most of these sessions, we don't really script them, which I think is a good thing because it allows us to, go through the discovery process inside of Nansen ourselves. But the starting point here is Token God mode as usual, and we plug in wrapped BTC because we know that that was one of the assets that was used for Saddle Finance and it is still used for it. So one common sort of customer journey or workflow that people go through is to think, I hold some wrapped Bitcoin. What should I be doing with the wrapped Bitcoin? And a starting point could be, what are other people doing with their wrapped Bitcoin? So it's interesting to note the inflows and outflows. And so this balance changes, I think, is a good place to start for this workflow. You can look at the different addresses where you have outflows like Aave. There's a lot of WBTC flowing out of Aave in the last seven days, and then the inflows, so where the tokens are ending up. And so it's pretty interesting if you notice. This is compound WBTC inflows of 4,600 ish, and then Aave Lending Pool Core. Perhaps many people move from Aave to compound for whatever reason. But going back to the starting point, we were looking at Saddle, so this new project, right? So is there anything here that looks like Saddle? Like, we don't see anything. There's a bunch of like Farmers, Alameda, Compound, SushiSwap, Uniswap, Binance, and so on. Maybe we should click through to the next page. And here you see Saddle Finance Swap. Days since first received 0. So basically, the first WBTC that came into Saddle came within the last 24 hours or so. Um, and so you can see the amount of tokens that came in, but I think we're interested here in seeing who contributed those funds. And so for this, we will simply go down to the top balances. So we scroll on a bit more, and we first note that 49 is the balance. That's just how we're going to retrieve that particular row. Maybe in the future we would have a direct link to like top depositors here, but for now, this is how you do it. You note that 49 WBTC in this row, and so we want to find that in top balances. So here, these balances are quite a lot higher, so we have to click through a bit. We go through some pages, and we get to the 49 level, and there we are. So that's the row. That's the specific address for Saddle Finance, the swapping contract. And then we can use these nice drill downs over here. So there's profiler, depositors, and recipients. So we are interested in seeing who is depositing WBTC into the Saddle Finance contract. So we can simply click on this, and it's going to pop up a new dashboard. And that dashboard is going to show who has been depositing WBTC into the Saddle Finance swap contract. So presumably they're providing liquidity, right? Maybe you know more about this project than me.
Yeah, I think they're providing liquidity. It's kind of like Curve Finance. So you provide liquidity into this pool of similar assets. So WBTC, RenBTC. I'm actually not sure exactly which flavors of wrapped Bitcoin are available here, but it looks like just from the data here, since the upper limit is roughly 1 BTC or one like wrapped Bitcoin, that there was probably a cap on how much one could deposit in this.
Yeah, that's a good observation. And you can see that directly from the data, right? So it's interesting how you can sort of jump between like reading up on what the project does and just spotting things directly in the data. But yeah, so you see like some maker voters, you see, obviously different DEX traders, some people with ENS names. I'm not sure I should read all these out. Dashcam, Larams, okay, mutate.eth, and so on. There's a smart LP in there. Interesting. We can click through and see if there's some more. Some ENS names, smart LPs. Interesting. I think, yeah, I wonder if this actually just changed a bit. Maybe people are still actively. Here we go. Fuckoff.eth. Nice.
Classy.
We have to label this recording as explicit content. But that's crypto, the Wild West. We have dgenspartan.eth here. Interesting. Some more smart LPs and smart money like testandprod.eth. That's cool. So it's actually, it looks like based ventures. It looks like there's actually a pretty good variety of people here, and you can see the number of rows to see how many addresses. That's all the way down here. How many addresses actually deposited? It's like 161. So not that many actually compared to some other projects, but some of these people aped in. Look at this GraphNode 1 CPOX hosted by Rabina.eth. Okay, cool. Yeah, so you can just click through this and you can try to figure out like what did these people do beyond that with their WBTC by clicking through on Profiler. So what do you think? Should we look at some of these, like the Smart LP perhaps?
Yeah, I think the smart LPs are interesting ones to look at always, because you can kind of make note of that address if they are doing a lot of interesting stuff with their WBTC. And if you're sitting on WBTC, then you can figure out like, oh, maybe this is an address that I should keep an eye on more often. And I think we can probably show in a little bit how you can track that more efficiently. But let's dive into this first.
Yeah, I'm excited about going into that later. We should have started this office hours by saying like we have a lot of cool stuff to talk about this week in terms of features. But hopefully people who are watching now get that message and should stay tuned. But yeah, so this smart LP address, we're looking at their WBTC transactions. So looks like most of the WBTC came from Uniswap. Some of it came from Curve, and some of it came from Compound. And then some of that went back into Curve, Uniswap, Compound, and then of course Saddle Finance, which we have already looked at. So they seem to be quite, well traveled in the DeFi world, but not too crazy. Mostly these are familiar names. And you can also see the individual transactions down here. By default, they're sorted by the size of the transaction. So you see like the biggest, most important transactions first, but you can also just click the time column and it sorts it by time. So their first WBTC transaction was actually getting WBTC from from Curve, it looks like. Interestingly, it went right back out again, like 3 minutes later. But okay, fair enough. So that's how they acquired their first WBTC. And then they've been using it with Uniswap, with Compound down here. This could maybe be labeled more explicitly to be Compound, but it's basically the C WBTC token, itself a contract. And yeah, Saddle Finance is actually the last thing they did with their WBTC. So maybe we can double click a bit on what you said about, well, what's the next step from here? So what if you were interested in tracking what the Smart LP is doing, because they clearly, are plugged in on, what's happening in the DeFi world. Doesn't always mean that they will make good decisions or good investments or anything like that, but you might want to track it. So the address is up here, right? And so you may have noticed that there is this little menu item here called Smart Alerts. And this is something that we have in early access right now, released to our VIP customers. The usual process we have now for releasing features is to first roll everything out to VIPs, because actually that's a manageable group of customers that we can get very raw feedback from. And it's also a benefit for them, being VIP customers, that they get to test out the new features first. So if we go into Smart Alerts, I'm going to show you how you could set this up. So first of all, you add a trigger, and you can add a trigger name. This might be a bit overwhelming. You don't have to fill out all this stuff because most of it's optional. But so let's say we wanted to, I don't know what you want to call this one, but let's say, Smart LP 1 WBTC transactions. That's the trigger name. And then addresses, you just paste in. Interesting, output is required. Okay, yeah, I shouldn't click enter. You just input it like that. And then maybe you could also give it a USD value. Perhaps they're doing like smaller transactions you're not so interested in. So maybe limit it to like $10,000 worth of value in the transaction. And then tokens, maybe we just do WBTC. So there's a few other WBTC related tokens, but we just want the vanilla wrapped BTC. And so you got the token address here, so that there's no confusion. You can then choose to get these alerts whenever this Smart LP makes a WBTC transaction worth more than $10,000 to either Discord, Telegram, or Slack. And the instructions to set it up they're a bit different. It's pretty easy though, so you can just follow those when you get access to this. But yeah, Telegram, basically you have to input like an ID, and yeah, that's pretty much it. From then on, you will get effectively, close to real time. I mean, at the most a few seconds delay on processing these transactions, and you get the notifications, and they come through in your Telegram channel. So you set up your own channel basically, and you just have to use the Nansen bot to set the chat ID and so on. So that's pretty cool. You could just save that. I'm not going to do it because I didn't input any Telegram chat ID. But yeah, we could also go through a couple of other, example alerts for this later. One thing I want to show right away though is there's also this pretty cool segment thing where you can choose. Maybe you don't care so much about this specific address. You just want to do smart money WBTC transactions. Maybe you don't want to like hunt down all these addresses yourself. Well, you can just do the smart money segment, and the same thing, right? The same token, same amount. And over time, we're going to let you create your own segments, which means, you can actually somehow, filter on specific criteria and save the segments, and then you can do alerts on the segments as well. So that's pretty cool. It's going to come a bit later, but we're going to release Smart Alerts in its current form that you see right here pretty soon. So as I said, it's in early access testing now with the VIP customers, and then it's going to come out, I think, within 1 or 2 weeks probably.
So a question we got in the question box was, is there any limit to how many alerts that someone can get?
Yeah, great question. We're going to start with just limiting it to 3 alerts, and that's just because we want to make sure that everything works as it should and so on. And then we have to see usage. If there's a lot of people who want to get way more than 3, maybe we'll bump it up. And there will also be, for the VIP segment, we will most likely have unlimited smart alert triggers, subject to like fair policy use, but effectively unlimited. So yeah, but for the standard plan, it would be 3 that we start with.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's another question, which is, how does one become a VIP customer?
Well, you can go to nansen.ai/plans, and you can check out the plans there. I think the landing page, you can maybe update on this. The landing page is being reviewed a bit to make it a bit clearer what the VIP offering includes. But you can basically sign up there on plans, or you can also ping Daniel in the Discord.
Yeah. So yeah, for anyone interested, whoever watches this video in the future, feel free to message me on Discord or on Twitter or something like that, and happy to walk you through what that includes. One thing I'll add here on just this kind of monitoring of interesting wallets, we do also have that My Nansen feature, which is still somewhat in alpha, but if you have interesting wallets that you want to track and you want an easy shortcut to going to the wallet profiler, you can just toss them in there and add a little label. I think you probably got some private ones on your My Nansen, so
yeah, that's why I'm not clicking.
Yeah. But yeah, anyone can kind of check that out and just copy and paste the address into their My Nansen.
Yeah, really good point. And so maybe to make the point that My Nansen right now is more like an address book, but there will be more functionality associated with that address book over time. So as I said, you can imagine getting like a custom segment where you can just indicate in your address book if they should be a part of the segment. And then also we will have your own custom labels show up in the actual dashboard UI, in the different charts and tables and so on. So we're going to integrate that over time, but we wanted to give people the address book early on so they can at least start building it out.
Yeah. All right, let's keep rolling here. So there were a few new features that we've been rolling out, both to VIPs and publicly in the last little while. I guess another feature that is worth poking in on is the DEX trades, which we've pulled up a couple times in the past. But this is where the elusive dark mode, or like the highly anticipated dark mode, is starting to be rolled out.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks pretty good. It's quite easy on the eyes, I think, personally. So yeah, this is also in VIP testing right now. Also going to be released within, I think, a week or 2. And yeah, you can see the DEX trades basically updating on the screen. Here we see Alameda doing a 3 WBTC trade against Ether, and you could click through the Etherscan transaction and see it 21 seconds ago. So it's pretty recent. So yeah, this update's live on your screen. And we got a lot of feedback on dark mode. Many people want that, and we have a new product designer who helped us redesign this page, and so you can expect that more of the Nansen platform will have a look and feel that is more similar to this, which is, in my opinion, looks way better than what we have. It's obviously real time, things changing on the screen, um, and yeah, it's just a better user experience and a better user interface in my opinion. So yeah, this is what it looks like right now. You can also interact with the table, by the way. So you could sort by value, and then you could sort of sit here and just see what like the largest trades in the last 40 blocks are. And so if a new large trade pops up, it's gonna enter here. So if there was like a, let's say, $500,000 worth transaction, it would basically pop to the top of this table because I've got it sorted. So that's kind of cool, and you can obviously sort with these other things too. And I think we're going to add some filters so that you can filter, for example, on tokens, and of course on value as well, so that you might not want to see like these smaller ones like 87 combo transaction and stuff like that.
Yeah. Um, all right, let's keep it going. So I guess this is another VIP feature still right now, but the gas tracker I think is probably one of the coolest dashboards that we've rolled out in a while.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
I'm personally super interested in this one. I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have wanted to get more insights on gas, both from like a spender side, consumer side, and poke in on this. But it hasn't been too easy in the past because most contracts aren't labeled, or you don't really know who is sending what where.
Yeah.
So let's
Precisely.
dive in here.
Yeah. So as you said, a lot of people want to know, why is gas so high? So anyone can, look at the ETH gas price and so on. But the unique thing about Nansen is that we have a, very good contextual awareness on top of the blockchain activity that takes place. So the stuff you're seeing right now on the screen, you could basically get similar things from like any, blockchain explorer or blockchain analytics product. But if you scroll a bit down, you can break this down, and you can say, well, first of all, let's look at the spenders. And so we have two concepts here: spenders and consumers. So spenders are basically the addresses, so like non-contracts that are actually paying the gas. So if you interact with a token or some other smart contract with your normal wallet, like MetaMask or something like that, you are paying the gas. And so that's what we call a spender. But the actual contract address you're interacting with, that's the consumer. I'm not sure this is the best wording, to be honest, but that's what we call it for now. And the first overview looks at spenders. So first of all, we've got like the top 20 entities, not the top 20 categories, but entities. So like Binance is one entity, but they have millions of addresses. And then other is like all the other entities. So then, that's like this little kind of red area. And you can see the top 20 entities are responsible for about 16%, like between 10 and 16% of all the gas fees on the Ethereum network. But so if you take sort of that red area and you break that out on the individual entities, you get this chart, which shows Binance being, around 30%, of that chunk. Nexo being, maybe about a bit less than 10%. It swings a bit depending on the day. Huobi, also a pretty big chunk, and it has these funny regular patterns where they're not very active on certain times, maybe because they're asleep, and they're processing transactions while people are at work. Mostly they're based in Asia, or in China and Hong Kong, I believe. So maybe that's why you see more activity during the waking hours of in Hong Kong time. And you see DYDX is here, Alameda Research, Bitstamp, OKX, FTX, Kraken, Crypto.com, Remitano, which I think is some crypto exchange, Argent, Bittrex, KuCoin, Upbit, Coinbase, Gemini, MXC, Bitfinex, Gate.io. Okay, so those are like the top 20 that we have. One thing I would point out, Coinbase is underestimated because it's hard to track all the Coinbase wallets because they have a very separate type of infrastructure. With regards to holdings, we have really good coverage on Coinbase because we have really good tracking of their cold storage and sort of main wallets. but they do employ lots of ephemeral addresses, and so that's where a lot of the gas use is actually spent. So it's a bit underestimated on Coinbase, probably quite dramatically, to be honest. But for the other ones, we think the coverage is very, very good, probably the best in the market, to be perfectly honest. And so you can see the same data, but just like the last hour, 24 hours, and 7 days, both at the entity level, which is what you also see above, or at the individual address level. So you see basically the last hour who's been spending the most fees on the network, and the top spender is Nexo and their deployer. So maybe because they're deploying deposit addresses to the Nexo platform. You see DYDX, which has meta transactions. That's a big driver. You see an Alameda contract here, and so on and so forth. So yeah, let me just pause here because it's kind of exciting, but it's a pretty cool dashboard. What do you think, Daniel?
I have a question above about, or at least just in the entities. So this top 20, is that top 20 overall, or is that just top 20 of ones that we track?
It's top 20 of the ones we track, yeah.
Got it.
Because there's, like, if you don't know the entity, that there's no way for us to include it. So again, as I said with Coinbase, that is like the largest gap with regards to gas spending that we have right now. And I would venture to guess that maybe this, if we had full coverage on Coinbase, maybe this would be like twice as high or even higher, because Coinbase does, like, from investigations, we know they spend a lot of gas, but it's hard to automatically track it for all of their wallets.
Got it. Okay. And so is there a situation where there'd be like non-exchanges that are top spenders in any given time, or does it make sense that it's just always the top exchanges, or at least like financial services companies that are spending the most in gas?
I think on the entity level, typically it will be the ones that have tons of addresses that they manage, which makes sense, right? Because there are gas costs associated with each individual address. So most of the time it will be those centralized large entities, and this is a pretty usual suspects list of addresses. Then there are some like DeFi related entities like Argent and DYDX, and I think that has to do with basically them to some extent covering gas costs on
Right.
behalf of users. So like we label this as as meta transactions with DYDX. I have to admit I have not dived deep into this, but that's probably the explanation. So most of the time it is centralized entities that manage tons of different addresses. But yeah, sometimes you might have like these meta transactions and projects that cover gas fees for their users.
Well, and I guess we would see more DeFi entities in the gas consumers category, which we can probably scroll down to now,
Yes,
because they are the smart contracts. I mean, they're the ones, like, people are spending gas to interact with them rather than them spending gas on behalf of
precisely.
a customer.
That's right. So, same conceptual chart, like top 20 versus the rest. Here, top 20 is like 45%, which could be because we also have better like tracking for the contracts on the entity level. But it could also just be more concentrated. So the top 20 is about like 40 to 45%. And if you break it down, it's a similar kind of list of usual suspects, but now for DeFi. So let's just go through it. Uniswap is, the big guzzler or consumer of gas if you look across all the different pools and the router and so on and so forth. 1inch Exchange, the next one. Tether, also a huge spender of gas, or consumer of gas rather. Wrapped Ether, so that's the token contract for Wrapped Ether. SushiSwap, Aave, ZeroX, Synthetics, DYDX, MakerDAO, Curve, Fi, TokenLon, Balancer, Compound, MetaMask Swaps, interesting, Kyber, Bitstamp, Argent, BlockFi, and Nexo. So, like, just a note on that. Why is Nexo there? Well, they use deposit contracts. So when you send funds to Nexo, you send funds to an actual smart contract, and then that's programmed to forward that to certain other wallets. So that's why you see Nexo also as a consumer. Yeah, but so it's pretty interesting how you see the kind of dichotomy between like DeFi and CeFi manifested in gas usage as like the consumer entities are basically DeFi, and the spenders are basically CeFi.
Is the chart that shows the top 20, like the if you scroll up a bit, sorry,
This one?
uh, it's just lagging a bit.
Or
Yeah, that one.
oh,
Would
sorry.
would
Okay.
you, yeah, the share of gas fees by top 20. Would you say that that top 20 percentage is effectively like our coverage of uh
No, we have higher coverage.
okay,
We definitely have higher coverage because there's um, tons of entities that use smart contracts that are not in that top 20. Um, and so normally we actually measure coverage on volume, not on gas usage. Um, but from memory, I know that the volume coverage is much higher than say 40 to 45%. It's more like 85%. But there's also a distinction of like just any kind of descriptive label versus like an entity label. So I can't give you like an exact answer on what the coverage is on gas for entities, but it's 100% sure that it's higher than this amount.
right. And I
Um,
guess technically we could have like a top 20 line on here and a top 50 line and like
yes,
top
yeah,
95 line or something like that,
yeah.
just
That's
to
that's
show like the
absolutely
breakdowns.
that's probably a good idea. That's a nice feature request. Maybe you should have a top 20 and a top 100, maybe at least. Um, I wonder if Daniel, not you, Daniel, but the other Daniel in our team, the research engineer who built this, I think maybe he did play around with something like that, and maybe there was a good reason why he didn't include it. But yeah, it's a good suggestion.
Um, all right. Well, let's keep moving past gas. Looping back to smart alerts real quick. Someone had a question in the question box, which is, can you set up an alert that triggers when a wallet interacts with a protocol, e.g., uh, a smart money wallet buying options from Hedgic without specifying the token?
Mm, that's a great question. Let me think. First of all, it looks like I didn't load for some reason. Um, so at the moment, I think the way you would do this is you would actually just input the address of the Hedgic contract here. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think any interaction with that address would then get listed. But it wouldn't allow you to specify who interacted with Hedgic, which I guess is what the question is. Um, so that's a little bit more tricky. With the on that specific example, like you could pretty easily look at, for example, who is staking or unstaking their right ETH and right WBTC for the Hedgic liquidity pools. But to write it like writing the options itself, I don't think we would be able to do that like out of the box. But it's a good proposal, and perhaps we should have just a more generic, contract interactions trigger as well. So, Daniel, if you can help me remember that, we should make a note and give that back to the team.
Yeah, sure thing. So in summary, not right now, but probably eventually.
You can,
It's
yeah.
it's
So
definitely
the
doable.
the way I like to think about this stuff is like sometimes you can find workarounds for it. So for this one in particular, you could find sort of large amounts. Well, yeah, for the liquidity provisioning, you could do stuff, but on the options writing itself, you probably can't. So yeah, that is kind of a tricky one. But sometimes you can find workarounds. I don't think you can find a workaround for that particular one. So we would have to add support for contract interactions specifically.
Good stuff. Okay, what else did we add in the past couple weeks? I think we added support for Aave V2. Maybe we can just poke through that real quick.
Yeah. So we have this Aave dashboard, and this is actually freely available to anyone. So even if your trial expired or you don't even have an Nansen account, you can see this dashboard. We used to have V1 here, but Aave actually upgraded to V2. And so since our last office hours, we have added support for V2 as well. So we can see what this looks like. I'm not going to go through all the things in this dashboard, but if I scroll down a bit, you can see here, for example, under the risk segment, you see asset liquidity. And this is broken down now into V1 and V2. So V1 is still by far the biggest in terms of liquidity. You can see here, like Ether, is at, more than $550 million worth of Ether in V1. And that, sorry, just to be clear on that, that's like the available liquidity plus the borrowed, right? So that's kind of what's the available liquidity sitting in it is 522 million, but also there's a debt there on 56 million, which has been borrowed from other people collateralizing other assets, right? But yeah, that's kind of the size, and then V2 is like 160 million in total, so it's in size that's about a third, I guess, approximately. So V2 is still a bit smaller than V1, but you can at least see these different assets, and it looks like the distributions are quite similar. You can see how Ether is the largest, Link is the largest in both, and it looks like the breakdown is in terms of utilization is pretty similar. They have similar patterns. WBTC seems to have higher utilization in V2 versus V1. But the stable coins are heavily utilized, almost completely borrowed, which means they should have relatively high interest rates. YFI about 50% utilization, maybe a bit higher in V1. Well, actually, Uni seems like a bit of an outlier here. Just like eyeballing this, right? Uni is like heavily provided, not very utilized, and it's not even included in V1. So maybe there is no Uni in V1. Not 100% sure, but someone could check that, I guess. But yeah, and you can check other stats like deposit amounts and withdrawals on V1 and V2. It's like the same chart, so it lets you, it's familiar if you look at V1 or V2. And then the same thing with like per asset liquidity and utilization curves. So let's look at Uni, for example. If it's here, I guess it should be, yeah. Oh, it is here, V1. Interesting. Maybe so there's no borrows from V1, or practically no borrows, and that's why, or maybe you can't borrow it. Anyway, it seems like there is liquidity, but it's not being borrowed. And then in V2, you see it being, utilization of 1.3, like very low. So not a lot of people are borrowing Uni from Aave, it appears. But yeah, you can look at all this stuff. USDT, so Tether has like a 98% utilization in V1, and it has a 92% in V2. So yeah, that's oh yeah, the last thing is also governance votes, because I think after AIP 1, the votes were made on V2 from there on. So now we have like I think we have all the different votes we should have at least, and you can see the whale votes, so the largest voters with the Nansen labels too. So yeah, you see some smart money actively participating in Aave governance.
If you scroll back up real quick to keep scrolling, and sorry, there's an alarm going on in the background on my end. But yeah, here, this
That's
chart.
okay.
So the daily amount deposited, withdrawn, and the borrowed, repaid. For any kind of aspiring quants in in the audience, I think an interesting potential strategy to back test would be seeing if there's any kind of signal from when there's a crossover between the amount withdrawn versus deposited, or the amount borrowed versus repaid. So, for example, like if there's a day where amount repaid spikes, it's probably because the markets are going down or something like that, and people need to repay their loans or clear up their health factor on Aave. So it could be an interesting strategy to test to see if there's any sort of predictive power in something like that.
Yeah, I feel like we should have maybe as like the net difference between these two. I think that would make it a bit clearer when it crosses over because you could just see if it's positive or negative.
Yeah, could do. I mean, it's worth poking into this data a bit more. Maybe actually this could be like a good public call out. If anyone's interested in poking around uh, the data for any sort of like quant purposes or anything like that, we'd definitely be interested in chatting with you and potentially supporting some quant style explorations of some of this data, and working with you to figure out what you can do with this to build some trading strategies.
Yes, very good. All right, we have about 15 minutes left. Anything else we should cover?
Um, well, we could poke around on Token God mode and see what's going on some other strategies. I know there were some new projects being announced this week, that caused some spikes in the market, like Mithril Cash spiked after the Typhoon Cash announcement.
Hmm.
So that could be worth just pulling up just to see if just to see what people are doing with that.
So what's that? MIC
MIC,
or?
yeah.
All right, let's have a look to see what people are
Mithril
doing.
Cash and Mithril shares spiked right after that.
Cool. Let's have a look. It's loading. So you can enter the token symbol here or in the URL. This is pretty bad UX, but it's going to get fixed this quarter when we roll out like a new user interface where you can more easily, choose to select either an address or a symbol, a bit similar to how you would search for like a token in Etherscan. So this is going to improve. Also, some people are annoyed that you can't like refresh if you input here, and that's true. But you can also just enter token symbol MIC, and then this one you can refresh, no problem. So that's like just a little workaround. All right, let's see. Looks like a lot of it is in SushiSwap. That's a lot of that's like 85% of the supply. That's pretty wild. You can look at the balance changes. So a lot of it is flowing out of the Mitcash MIC farm, the LP token,
Hmm.
and where's it going? Well, it seems to be just going to different individual addresses mostly. The treasury, I wonder what that treasury is. That's interesting. And it goes into SushiSwap directly. So the MIC MIB pool, swiftcoin.eth. Yeah, lots of DEX traders, some ENS names, simple ERC fund. That's curious. I wonder what that is.
Yeah, nothing major is jumping out to me here.
No, you could. No, that's. I agree. You could look at the large transactions as well. It seems like there's one smart LP who exited the one of the farms,
yeah,
right? Let's see, and then you could look at the top balances. So yeah, this one as well. Smart LP. Maybe it's the same one.
yeah. I mean, I guess one thing you could do is pull the address of that smart LP. Well, first of all, check the profiler, so see
Mm.
what they've been doing with their Mithril Cash and see if they've been selling it or something like that. And then theoretically, you could put on a smart alert for that smart LP.
Yes. Let's see. 1.1 million. Boardroom. Interesting.
Boardroom, I
Boardroom
think, is
contract.
the is from Mithril Cache. I think it's one of those contracts in all the basis cache forks.
Mm. Yeah. So it looks like the largest transactions then they come from the boardroom. Is that where they farm it, or they claim it from, or how does that work?
I'm not too sure, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm definitely not. It's yeah, as we said before, like it's kind of nice to just poke around on something you don't really know, and then obviously some people in chat might know, but it is kind of a good starting point to just understand like what's happening, even if you don't have all the context of the project. But you can also,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, click through on, if you sort by time, the latest things they were doing is to basically um, send tokens to this here. So that suggests, that they were pulling out some funds, but they actually put back quite a lot afterwards to the farm or the liquidity pool. That's interesting.
Oh, before we forget, one other thing we could potentially look at is the backtesting page
Oh yeah.
for the I guess the different smart alerts,
Yeah.
or what would you call these? The new indicators, or what would you consider this?
So first of all, I think this is the wrong one. Maybe it's this one. Here we go. So for smart alerts, we're also doing some other stuff that is not so easily, you can't really customize that easily, and instead we try to make sort of curated alerts. And in order to select what are some good, curated alerts, we tried to, for example, spot what are some hot contracts. So the initial idea for this is like find hot yield farms, right? And so how do you find hot yield farms? Well, you can look at where people are depositing lots of money really fast, and not just one address depositing, but multiple different addresses. So the idea here is that for us internally, and maybe we'll make this like a feature in the Nansen platform. Uh, by the way, do you mind muting, because we got the
Oh,
sirens
sorry
in
about
the
that.
background? No problem. So you've got some parameters like, should it be a new contract? So how many days should it have been at maximum since the contract was launched, right? So like we only want to look at contracts that were launched in the last 7 days, or like how many depositors should we have seen within the last 24 hours? Then, well, this is the window. So how many hours do you want to look over? And then how much funds should have flown into this? So like $1 million, maybe minimum. And then interestingly, how many smart money wallets should have deposited into the contract? So let's say should be a minimum of 3, right? And so you can run this, and it's going to take a little while because it's like an internal tool that we use. But maybe we'll spot like, any contracts where all of these conditions were true. And the is that, we would set up an alert which actually notifies you, hey, this is like a hot contract. It looks like people are sending funds to this. You might want to know about this contract. And in fact, Saddle Finance, would have been alerted with this configuration, because you see a net inflow of more than 4 million. You see 189 depositors, net inflow of $206,000. I guess that's in the last 24 hours, and most of this net inflow. Oh, sorry, I'm reading this wrong. This is the smart money net inflow. That's why it has this little icon. So the total inflow is 4 million plus, and then $206,000 from smart money wallets. And in fact, there were 8 different wallets. So this, although there was some issues, I think, with regards to like being arbed and basically getting wrecked in different ways, this would have popped up on your radar, with this configuration. The other one I'm not too sure of. We might want to look at that later and have a drill down. But this is just to give you a bit of an insight on how we can curate these kind of alerts as well, beyond your self-serve smart alerts that you will have in the platform soon.
I'm hesitant to unmute given the alarm is still going
It's
on
not
in the
actually
background.
that loud. It's just you know,
Okay.
you can hear it.
Maybe let's double click on that Elite Dex Trader. I'm curious. So it's flagged as an Elite Dex Trader on our end because it's in the top 1% of volume and frequency on dexes.
Mm.
But this might either be like maybe we erroneously tagged that as Elite Dex Trader. Maybe it's actually an interesting
Yeah.
contract.
So this is, this is an interesting thing because you sometimes discover stuff like this when you try to do stuff 100% automated, right? So my intuition is, we'll see a bunch of yield farms and liquidity pools show up here, but this could also just be some like ARB bot contract, which is used by lots of other addresses, right? So this one, I actually don't know what it is, but when you look at who's interacting with it, maybe we will get some clues. So first of all, it is a new contract. I mean, that's why it was included. It's basically been around for, around a week. It holds some WBTC, some USDC, USDT, Unimaker, SFI. Okay, interesting, and Acro. So okay, at least it's held some of those before. There's no incoming ETH and there's no outgoing ETH. So, and it is a contract. So I think it seems likely, yeah, if you scroll down top interacting wallets, just looking at the transactions, there's a lot of interactions with the Kai token. So this kind of new version of gas token made by the 1inch team, wrapped ether, and then lots of different Flashboy contracts and Flashboy addresses and high activity addresses plus like Uniswap and SushiSwap. So my guess would be that this is like a DEX trading bot. And if you look at, let's see, maybe ETH transactions out, you can also see that like USDC and wrapped ether, Kai token. Yeah, it's very curious how much it uses Kai token. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to research this one a bit more. Just like no ETH volume, it's all tokens. Token transactions out. If we sort by that, most of it goes to zero address, which means it's probably burning wrapped ether. Token transactions in.
We can maybe we can poke through this afterwards, but we've got some questions in the chat here that I think we can get to before the end of the session.
Yeah.
The first question is, what are the most valued metrics so far that we've exposed on Nansen, on the dashboards, in your opinion,
Right.
I guess?
Yeah, I've gotten this question before. When people say metrics, I don't think metrics on their own are necessarily that useful. But I guess metrics more broadly refers to also data, right? So something like the top balance changes with the actual labels overlaid is extremely useful because it lets you navigate what's actually happening with WBTC or USDC, or other things. But it's not really like a metric that just tells you now you should buy, now you should sell. You still need to apply some human intelligence on top of it. So that is very useful on its own. I would say also top depositors is used very heavily by many very sophisticated DeFi traders to understand, who is actually aping into different yield farms and and smart contracts. So that's a feature. Like, is it a metric? Not really. And yeah, those are two that come to mind for me right away. Maybe if you think about metrics more broadly and in terms of just seeing like a chart, it can be quite useful to look at net inflow of stablecoins on exchanges. So this aggregates right across the major exchanges, and it shows you how much money is flowing in or out of exchanges. And it looks like there was actually a lot of money flowing out of, say, Bitfinex, Huobi, and Coinbase. I mean, it might have been like a migration, and that's something I would want to investigate. But you can still see like inflow, for example, very heavy at the beginning of the year. and that matches with like very bullish sentiment. And then the last few days, it's been a lot of outflow. I don't think all of that has to do with just migration of wallets, um, given that it's been quite consistent. So, that's something that I think is an interesting metric to be aware of with regards to, money chasing crypto sitting on exchanges. And that's both centralized and also decentralized exchanges. So yeah, that's one metric to look at as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. Next question is, I think we can probably just give you like a quick high level answer on this one. The question is, do you have some examples of how users can leverage these dashboards into actionable moves? I think we've demonstrated it a couple times throughout this session, like with the token God mode, looking at WBTC, where things are going, and then discovering some new yield farms there. In our previous office hours as well, you can watch those on YouTube at nansen.ai/YouTube, or if you're watching a recording of this, you're probably already on YouTube. So just click through and you can find some of our other videos. And then the final question here is, do you have any thoughts on layer 2 movements or any creative ways to track those?
That's a great question. It's actually one of the focus areas for the team this quarter. So we are still reviewing, the most used L2 solutions, notably Optimism and ZK Sync. So those are maybe the two main solutions that we are looking at to add support for. So we are also trying to chase down the Synthetix team. So if anyone, who's in the Synthetix ecosystem is watching this, feel free to poke them. We've been trying to get in touch with them through their Discord, basically so that we can, get Synthetix data from L2 available to Nansen users. So basically, the short answer is we are actively working on L2 support, and I'm quite confident that we will have some solid L2 powered dashboards ready within a few weeks, at the very least within this quarter.
Perfect. And regarding ETH2, we also do already have some dashboards for that. I know it's not the same, but we've got the ETH2 beacon chain dashboard, and then I guess we've got the Lido dashboard, which is related.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's all the questions in the chat. Anything to add before we wrap up, Alex?
No, I think that's a pretty dense session. Hopefully people found it useful. And you can always reach us in the Discord as well.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining. Message us on Twitter, Discord, wherever, Telegram if you want. And we're always happy to answer your questions. And thank you very much for being part of our Nansen ecosystem. I guess one final thing is we launched a newsletter. So the last week we sent out our first edition of this kind of not a newsletter where we discuss different things that are going on in the markets. It's kind of a supplement to this office hours session. So we're just sharing interesting projects that are coming across our radar and sharing some pro tips on how to get the most out of Nansen. So if you're not already subscribed to that, you can go to nansen.ai/news and put in your email, or if you think a friend will find it valuable, feel free to put in their email as well. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and we'll catch you next Wednesday on the next Nansen office hours. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Take care.